Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'du. Hello, my name is Ghifari Naufal. I am from TNTKJ. So, today I want to uh, present my presentation. The topic my presentation is processor technology development. Number one, generation 1 processors 8089 in years 1978 was Intel's first 16-bit CPU to use a 16-bit CPU bus, but 16-bit hardware such as motherboards back then was too expensive. Where 8-bit microcomputers were the standard. In years 1979, Intel redesigned the CPU to match existing 8-bit hardware. The first PC in years 1981 had this 8088 provider's CPU. The 8088 is a 16-bit CPU, but only internally. The external database with is only 8 bits, which provides completely with existing hardware. Number 2, generation 2 processor H0 to H6. The 2H6 in years 1982 was also a 16-bit processor. This processor has a relatively large progress compared to the first generation. The clock frequency is increased, but the main improvement is the optimization of command handling. The 2H6 produces more work per clock tick than the H0H8 and H0H6 at the Intel speed 6 MHz. It's performed 4 times better than the H0H6 at 4.77 MHz. Number 3, generation 3 processor H0386DX. The 386 was launched October 17 in years 1985. The 386 was the first 32-bit CPU from a traditional PC DOS point of view. Not a revolution, the good 2H6 ran as fast the first 3H6SX. This bit implementing 32-bit mode. This processor can address up to 4 GB of memory and has a better addressing method than the 2H6. The 3H6 runs at a clock speed of 60.20 and 33 MHz. Next, processor 803H6SA. This chip is a very famous incomplete chip from 3H6DX. This processor only has a 16-bit external database, in contrast to the 32-bit DX. Also, SX only has 24 address lanes. Therefore, this processor can only address a maximum of 16 MB of RAM. This processor is not a real 386, but the cheaper motherboards made it very popular. Next, generation 4 processor. Generation 4 processor, the D8048 was issued April 10 in years 1989 and runs twice as fast as its predecessor. This could be due to the frustrating handling of X89 commands, especially in RSC mode. At the same time, the bus speed was increased, but the 3H6DX and 4H6DX are 32-bit chips. And the next, processor H04H6SX. This processor is a new chip that is not complete. Much core processor is omitted compared to 4H6DX. Next, processor Cyrix in Texas Instruments have made a series of 4H6 SLC chips. The chips use the same set of commands as the 4H6DX and operate 32-bit internally like the DX, but externally works on 16-bit like 3H6XX. And next, processor IBM has its own 4H6 chips. A series of chips are named SLC2 and SLC3. The latter is known as Blue Lightning. These chips are compatible to Intel's 4H6SX, as they don't have a built-in mathematical coprocessor, but it has 16 KB of internal size, compared with Intel, which has 8 KB. What detracts from its performance is the bus interface of the 3H6 chips. Next, Generation 5 Pentium Classic. This chips was developed by Intel and released on March 22 in years 1663. Pentium processor are superscalar, which means they can execute more than one command per clock tick. This processor handles 2 commands per tick, equivalent to 4H6S on a single chip. There are major changes in the system bus. The width is doubled to 64 bits and the speed is increased to 60 or 66 MHz. And next, Generation 6 Pentium Pro. Development of the Pentium Pro began in years 1991 in Oregon. Introduced on November 1 in years 1995. The Pentium Pro is a pure RESG processor, optimized for 22-bit processing on Windows NT or OS2. And next, Pentium 2. Pentium 2 introduced May uh, May 7 in years 1997. The Pentium 2 features is CPU enhanced together with a 512 KB L2 in a SACC. SACC is single-edge contact cartridge module. And number 2, and to connect the motherboard using the slot and connector and the P6 GTL plus bus. MMX command repair running 16-bit programs. Fun for Windows 3.11 user. Duplicate and fix L1 says 16 KB plus 16 KB. Internal speed increased from 233 MHz to 3000 MHz. 300 MHz. Later versions are higher, and L2 says runs at half the CPU speed. Next, Pentium 2 Celeron. Intel makes a brand new CPU called Celeron. The processor is the same as the Pentium 2, except the L2 says has been removed. This processor can be called the Pentium 2 S8. In years 1998, Intel replaced its Pentium MMX with the first Celeron. Then the design was revisited. Next, the next is Pentium 2 Celeron A Mendocino. The interesting part of the new cartridge is with 128 KB of L2 cells inside the CPU. This gives us excellent performance, as the L2 cells runs at full CPU speed. The Celeron 3000A is a chip in a card. And next, Pentium 2 Celeron PPGA socket 3070. New socket 3070 for Celeron. The 400 and 366 MHz in years 1929 processor were available in a plastic pin grid array or PPGA. Socket PGA 3070 looks like a traditional socket 7. It has 3070 pins. And next, Pentium 2 Xeon. On 26 July in years 1998, Intel introduced a new Pentium 2 cartridge called Xeon. Intended for server and end user. Xeon is a Pentium 2 with a new cartridge that first a new connector called slot 2. This module is twice as installed as the Pentium 2, but there are other important changes. The improvement. One is new type of L2 RAM chips, GSRAM, a custom SRAM which runs at full CPU speed. Different L2 says is 512 124 or 248 KB of L2 RAM. RAM memory up to 8 GB can be accessed. Up to 4 H7 is one server. Supports clustered server. New chipset H2440GX and H2450NX. Next, uh, think that's all for me. I think thank you for attention. Thank you for support. And Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.